Things can't get any worse than they did for the Chicago White Sox before the All-Star break. Or can it? Let's discuss what to watch out for post-All-Star break regarding the White Sox. Next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at SouthsideShowdown.com, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. The Chicago White Sox are 27-71 as they begin the post-All-Star break portion of the schedule. No team has ever entered this part of the schedule having lost this many games. The chances of the Sox flipping the script and suddenly starting to win is next to none. There's a good chance the front office could trade gate draws Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert Jr. And I know I'm not painting the best picture, but there are still some storylines worth monitoring as the season goes forward, and I'll discuss that in the first segment. Then the front office shook up the roster during the All-Star break. I'll discuss why little, too late. And finally, MLB surprisingly dropped the 2025 schedule yesterday. I'll discuss how that was an epic fail and some highlights of the 125th season of Chicago White Sox baseball. This episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. The biggest storylines to watch for is Pedro Grifol's job security, the trade deadline, and along with Drew Thorpe and Jonathan Cannon's outings. Right out of the gate, it pains me to say it, I doubt Pedro Grifol is getting fired after GM Chris Getz is done unloading his veteran assets. First, ownership hasn't allowed it yet, and with 2 months left remaining in the season after the deadline, it would be tough for Jerry Reinsdorf to change his mind. However, if I'm Chris Getz, I am making the plea to allow me 2 months to evaluate Charlie Montoya to see if he could be the manager during the first phase of Rebuild 2.0. As I've said on Wednesday's show, the manager search does not need to be extensive, unlike what the GM search should have been. Sox have ties to a few qualified names. I discussed that on Wednesday's show. However, one more name to throw out there that I forgot, Chris Harris. He's on the Cubs, the Cubs third base coach, scored the winning run in, games 4, the 2005 the 2005 World Series. So he has ties to the organization, has gone to other organizations. So he would be another candidate that I would talk to. But otherwise, like I said, people say, well, he's old. Terry Francona was still winning games and he's sick. He's taking the year off to heal. If he wants to come back and he's healthy, I say bring him back. Bring him to the White Sox. And then Skip Schumacher. Oh, he's not that great. Didn't he win NL Manager of the Year? And if not, yeah. I would love to have the 2 months to see if Charlie Montoya could be the manager that takes a bunch of losses in 2025, because he also has a track record of winning. So maybe he's the guy that takes the L's in 2025 and then helps maybe the Sox start winning in 2026. And if not, you got Sergio Santos at AA. And I do say, why not kick the tires on Chris Harris? But regardless, I just don't see Pedro getting fired after the deadline, since he wasn't fired after the 3-22 start. The trade deadline rumors are going to be coming fast and furious this week, and obviously next. And I have a hunch with just how much trickles out, the Sox are going to trade Garrett Crochet, even though, again, I'm a die-on-that-hill guy that says they should keep Crochet, extend him. But the sad thing is, what's motivating them to move Crochet is they don't want to extend him. They don't want to pay him. I think they're hopeful they can move Luis Robert Jr., but I think he's going to stay just because of what they're asking for. However, if they are moved, move them separately. As the latest rumor has them going to the Dodgers in a package together. Pat Ragazzo of New York Yankees SI tweeted this out at Ragazzo Report. Sources: Dodgers are heavily in on Chicago White Sox stars Garrett, Crochet, and Luis Robert Jr. Asking price is hefty, but went into why at least one of them makes sense for the Yankees, as well as a Chicago White Sox reliever who is available as well. And then he wrote an article on New York Yankees SI. Here's what he writes. The Dodgers have been decimated by injuries this season, but expect to get Mookie Betts, Tyler Glasnow, Max Muncy, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Clayton Kershaw, among other key pieces, back down the stretch. They also have a very deep farm system, and Chicago's hoping to package both of their stars in one deal. But there's a possibility that Crochet, Robert Jr., and even Kopech get dealt separately, which could benefit the Yankees. In this case, Chicago is believed to be asking for at least 2 controllable major league players or close to big league ready pieces and 2 top 5 prospects in a deal for just Crochet. The New York Post's John Heyman reported on Thursday that the Yankees are not that into the 25-year-old hurler who is under control for 2 more years. Crochet could also be moved to the bullpen in the second half of the season, given the fact that he's over 100 innings and has been a reliever up until the season. As for Robert Jr., the word is the White Sox want a major league ready pitcher for a few position players, player prospects in return, which was described by one source as a lesser package than what the Yankees gave up for Soto. All right, so obviously Heyman's report that they're not into the White Sox hurler, I think is probably them trying to say, we're not giving up Spencer Jones or Chase Hampton. They're the 2 and 3 prospects that have been linked to what the White Sox are coveting. But again, spread your resources out. I mean, could the Sox get a lot of players in a package deal for Crochet and Robert Jr.? Yeah. But will they get quality? I don't know. I mean, the last time that I can even think of that the Sox packaged up 2 All-Stars that I can recall was the White Flag trade in 1997 when they traded Wilson Alvarez and Roberto Hernandez to the Giants, that infamous trade. They got six prospects back, but only Keith Folk and Bobby Howry became contributors. And they became contributors as relievers. And Mike Caruso, he had a good rookie year, but he flamed out. So again, you could package them together, but unless you're getting Colby Mayo and Samuel Basallo back from the Orioles, spread it out. You know, you could package Crochet and Kopech together, or Crochet and Brevia together to get maybe the Yankees to say, yeah, we'll give you Spencer Jones and Chase Hampton. Or the Dodgers to give up some of their top prospects. Although, again, the Dodgers' positional prospects, as we've gone over, they're not as attractive as, say, what the Yankees have. Again, the Yankees, even though Jones is having an underwhelming season, and he might be a little bit overrated, I think, but he's still a good prospect. He's at least a better hitting prospect and closer to the big leagues than what the Dodgers could have to offer. But please spread your resources out, and get Max Robert Jr. and Max Crochet. I think if you put them together, you're probably not going to max them unless you're getting a bona fide stud that is already in the big leagues back. In terms of what is on the field after the deadline, all that matters is Drew Thorpe and Jonathan Cannon. With or without Crochet, the Sox need those two to continue to pitch well to give any semblance of hope that the Sox can get back to being competitive with the young, talented arms they have. And as I'll discuss in the second segment, I'm not sure you or I will see some of the hitting prospects this year, especially with the Rookie of the Year timeline considerations that Sox Machine's Josh Nelson pointed out on X, formerly Twitter. He was basically saying the Sox might hold off on calling up Edgar Caro. He didn't mention Colson Montgomery's name, but that could be another name. Obviously, you want to keep them eligible for a chance to have a shot at getting Rookie of the Year, because if that happens, the Sox can pick up an extra draft pick in 2026. So I do think that they're going to keep some of those prospects down, or they probably won't be up until September. Although maybe you and I might get a chance to see Kai Busch or Mason Adams start, considering if the Sox do deal Crochet, Eric Fetty, and Chris Flexen, that is 3 arms they have to replace in the starting rotation. They could go veteran with Michael Soroka, although he left his last outing with an injury. Mike Clevenger, we still don't know if he will be brought back from his injury rehab assignment. And they could go with Chad Kuhl, but it wouldn't shock me to see if they want to kick the tires and see what can Kai Busch or Mason Adams do. I doubt we're going to see Noah Schultz, especially with the workload that they've had him under, whereas he's only pitching on Saturdays and he's only throwing 4 innings. Well, the Sox finally decided to DFA Martin Maldonado along with a couple of other roster moves. I'll discuss why this roster shakeup, while necessary, was too little, too late. Next on Locked On White Sox. Don't know what's going on with the graphics there for those watching on YouTube. Having some glitches there, folks. Sorry about that. This episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities. With hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you just might find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival cities. Hey, the White Sox, they're currently in Kansas City. Maybe you want to take a last-minute weekend trip, check out the Negro League Museum, get some barbecue, and cross off Kauffman Stadium off the list of stadiums you haven't visited. Say you've not been to historic Fenway Park. Sox play there in early September, so plenty of time to plan a trip, and use Booking.com to find a place to lay your head. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. And if picking more or less is your selection skill, then you should try out Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. Think Chris Flexen can pitch more than 5 2/3 innings? Then you can go more on the 17 pitching outs Prize Picks has. Maybe you don't want to risk how far he pitches. Then you can pick more or less on the 1.5 walks allowed Prize Picks has. Plus, you can pick more or less on how many birdies or final strokes players such as Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau will have in the British Open this weekend. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Excuse me there. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that streaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox are back in action tonight against the Kansas City Royals. First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. I just ask you make me your first listen. Well, Martin Maldonado should have been DFA'd in mid-May, not mid-July. And the moment Corey Lee showed he was capable of reaching his floor as a backup catcher was the moment the Sox should have cut ties with Maldonado. He was hitting so poorly that his numbers screamed out, automatic out, and it also screamed out, you should have retired 3 years ago. Yet the Sox wanted Martin to tutor Lee. Pedro Grifol just loved how Maldonado got the pitchers ready for starts, even though, again, he was batting under 100 for most of 2024. But hey, Lee, Maldonado must have taught Lee the finer points of catching. And he must have imparted all the wisdom he had because he's been DFA'd. The crazy part here is there's chatter in the baseball social media world, especially like at the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers social media world, that they should trade for Maldonado because the Sox have, I believe, 10 days to trade him. And the Astros and the Rangers need help at catcher. And if Getz can get the same kind of deal he got for Robbie Grossman, I do actually think Getz deserves executive of the year consideration. You could say that's way overblown, but man, if he could get a pitcher that can throw in the high 90s like they got for Robbie Grossman, that could project to even be a potential reliever, that would be huge. I don't know why. I mean, I know the Astros, they've had Maldonado before, but he just doesn't do anything anymore. I mean, if you need someone to literally catch the ball, he can do that. But he was hitting well below 100 up until recently. I mean, that he was an automatic out. And that was one of the reasons why the Sox struggled so much to score runs. It was basically 8 on 9 half the time. And sometimes it was 7 on 9 or 6 on 9 with how much Andrew Benintendi and Andrew Vaughn were struggling. And it might still be 8 on 9 with how much Andrew Benintendi is struggling. During the All-Star break, the Sox also signed infielder Nick Senzel, who was recently released by Washington. Again, I had some guests on, so that's why I'm just getting to this now. Senzel, I believe, was signed, though, on Wednesday night. He was signed during the All-Star game. Briefly touched on it with Brett yesterday, my guest. I'll shout out for him joining from Southside Sox. Senzel, though, former top 30 prospect in that 2017 prospect list that the Sox seem to be obsessed with. I mean, if you were in the top 100 in 2017, there's someone in that organization that really has Chris Getz's ear to be like, we got to get these guys. But think about it. The Sox have Andrew Benintendi on their roster. He was the number 1 overall prospect in 2017, according to MLB Pipeline. Yoan Moncada was number 2. Eloy Jimenez, he was number 14. Michael Kopech, number 16. Clint Frazier, he's at AAA. He was number 24. Senzel was 26. Eric Fetty was number 60. Lucas Giolito and Dylan Cease, they were also on that list. And 2017 has a ton of talented names on the top 100 list. You know, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Ozzie Albies, Cody Bellinger, and Rafael Devers. But man, the Sox missed the boat on guys that could have turned into great players. Now, part of that was injuries with like Yoan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez. And Yoan and Eloy did help the Sox win the 2021 AL Central. Kopech obviously helped there too, but it's all right here. 10-cent head, $1 million arm. I would have not given Andrew Benintendi the richest free agent contract in franchise history for a guy who just hit singles. And like again, when you the biggest thing to look at is when you look at today's top 100, these guys could all look great. But then think about it, 7 years from now, some of these guys don't even get to the big leagues, or some of these guys are out of baseball. Lewis Brinson, he was in the top 20, I believe, when I was going through that list. He flamed out, and he was part of a huge trade that the Brewers made with the Marlins to get Christian Yelich. So I'm just saying, like, you know, that's the other thing. Like when the Yankees are like, oh, we can't give up Spencer Jones. Like he's a sacred cow. Like, look at how some of these guys develop. And you're talking about a top 75 prospect. And yes, I would love the Sox to get him. And if they got him, I'd be like, oh, what? We got Spencer Jones. But you got to have some perspective that not all these guys are going to pan out, or some of these guys are just going to be Andrew Benintendi. Andrew Benintendi was the number 1 overall prospect, and he's just a replacement level player, contact hitter, never been really able to drive the ball. But Senzel, he's got 7 home runs on the season. He can play third, second, and outfield. He was obviously hitting under 220. That's one of the reasons why he was DFA'd. But he gives the Sox some potential pop out of third base, as Lenyn Sosa and Danny Mendick just could not provide power at a position that demands it. And now they're not even on the 26-man roster because they were part of the roster shakeup. Sosa was optioned down to AAA Charlotte, and Mendick was DFA'd. Brooks Baldwin, he gets called up, and Chuckie Robinson, he's getting the call to replace Maldonado. And you got to think this is it for Sosa. If the Sox are willing to go outside the organization to see if they can do better than him, and if they're willing to take a look at Baldwin, and they've already now looked at Sosa at the big leagues about 4 times, and only now did he show that he can at least be like a utility player. He did have a hot streak where he had a couple of multi-hit games, and he is the type of guy that when he gets hot, he can touch the baseball, but he wasn't driving it. A lot of singles, some doubles, but you need homers out of third base, and he just wasn't providing it. And then I think they took a look at him in second base, and they're like, well, we've seen about enough. Let's take a look at Baldwin. And Baldwin has done nothing but hit since he was drafted in the 12th round by the Sox in 2022. Currently, he's hitting .324 between AA and AAA. Although he gives off that, this is just me, the vibe. And maybe just because I've seen this is what happens. But he gives off that Mendick, Leury Garcia, or Yolmer Sanchez vibe. As someone who the Sox could develop, but only into a utility player. But the difference between those three is Baldwin does have that intrigue that he has proven he can hit, and he can hit well at every level. And if he can prove he can hit at the big leagues, that's going to provide tremendous cover just in case Montgomery, Brian Ramos, or Jacob Gonzalez turn out to be busts, because he can slot in, and hopefully then he would be a professional, or at least a professional replacement level player until the Sox find another third base, shortstop, or second base solution. So that is my hope for Baldwin. Be more than a utility player. And I know some are excited that he could be an all-star with all the numbers he put up in his highlights. I just want him to be a professional baseball player who can start. I'm just tired of seeing the Sox producing bench guys. And Chuckie Robinson, he should have been up months ago, as I'm assuming he knows when to do a pitching mound visit, just as good as Maldonado. And again, I get why the Sox are being patient with Caro. Well, Major League Baseball, without much notice, dropped the 2025 schedule. I'll discuss how that was an epic fail and also some highlights of the schedule next on Locked On White Sox. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trade, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and an industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from the free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Salvador Perez always seems to crush a fastball mistake against the White Sox. It is plus 390 for him to hit a home run, so maybe that is something you might want to consider. It could never hurt to play Luis Robert Jr.'s plus 400 to hit a home run. Hey, if you're a diehard of a diehard who always has hope the Sox might find a way to win, it is plus 750 for LRJ to hit a homer and the Sox money line. But I think they're going to lose because you're a realist. Perez going yard is plus 490, along with the money line of, again, Perez hitting a home run and the Royals winning. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And the White Sox are back in action tonight against the Kansas City Royals. The first pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Got a little ant crawling around on my microphone there. Thank you. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. Again, to the everydayers, shout out to you guys. Appreciate your loyalty. I love the YouTube community that we've have good discussions. Although the guy that says my eyes are going around, first of all, I'm not broadcasting just to you. I'm broadcasting to everybody. And I have notes that I look at. And I'm not paying for a teleprompter. I'm sorry. Okay. And also, watch a lot of people. Their eyes move because we're human beings. Our eyes move. Also, it's a podcast that happens to be on YouTube. So there is my inside baseball PSA for people. And you might be saying you're being defensive, but it's like, are we really going to die on these hills? Are these the things that you want to point out? Or hey, do you want to talk about White Sox baseball? Because that's what I'm here for. MLB showed why it's still way behind the NFL and the NBA in the popularity contest by just dropping the 2025 schedule release pretty much unannounced. And now, if you want to go with the shock factor, and that the Thursday of the All-Star break is the driest sports day of the year. The Thursday of the All-Star break, there's basically nothing going on. You get some WNBA, maybe some MLS, but otherwise it is not much. Although you did have the first round of the British Open, but sometimes you don't get that. So I understand, hey, this is a dry day. There's not much to talk about. Let's drop the schedule. But at least give a hint. At least make that the day. Make it a tradition. Establish a tradition. And do what the NFL does. Get that hype out there, and then let the social media teams that the MLB has have some fun with it. Instead, it was like, yep, here's a schedule. Surprise. And I get baseball is a 162 game slog and not the 17 game main event like the NFL. Totally understand that. But MLB has just always found a way to do things half what. Just kind of like, here we're the national pastime, even though we're no longer really the nation's sport. We want the players to market themselves. We're happy now being a regional sport, even though the regional sports network model for getting revenue is completely dying out. That just frustrates me with Major League Baseball. They should have had a huge MLB network TV broadcast, huge social media fun. Basically don't treat it like a news dump on a weekend. Anyways, the Sox will celebrate the 125th season of the franchise and the 20th anniversary of the 2005 World Series next year. And I expect that to be the theme of the season, as the Sox are probably not going to be much better next year. I mean, I think basically the only thing that we can hope is lose 90 games instead of 100 games. The highlights of the schedule, they will start the season at home with 2 games against the Angels and 3 against the Twins. Opening day is March 27th. Although, wouldn't it make more sense to play in Anaheim on March 27th than Chicago? I'm just saying, just throwing it out there. Usually there's potential of snow in March. Not much in Anaheim. It's still like sunny in Anaheim usually. That's just me. They are the home opener for the Detroit Tigers, as the Tigers, they'll open up their home slate on April 4th against the Sox. If you want to go to historic Fenway Park to see the White Sox play the Boston Red Sox, you got a weekend series over April 18th through the 20th. And that kicks off a weird 9-game road stand, as they're going to go to Boston, then Minnesota, and then they possibly have to go to Sacramento or wherever the heck the A's are going to play next year. So they basically have to go from one coast to the next, and then they come back home. It's kind of weird. Usually you do the West Coast all in one, couple, maybe they play the A's and the Angels again out there, but that's how they've got it. First part of the Crosstown Classic is May 16th and the 8th through the 18th at Wrigley. And then the Cubs are going to come back to guaranteed rate July 25th through the 27th. You don't get a bonus Shohei Ohtani in Chicago next year. So the Sox are going to go to the Dodgers to start July. Bryce Harper and the Phillies, though, they come in July 28th through the 30th. You got a big homestand to end August with 3 against Minnesota, 4 against KC, and 4 against the Yankees. The Orioles come to town on September 15th through the 17th, followed by a home series finale against the Padres. And then the Sox are going to wrap up the 2025 season at the Yankees on September 23rd through the 25th, and then the Nationals the 26th through the 28th. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'll be back Monday with a Minor League Monday report, and feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding the storylines of what to follow after the All-Star break, the recent roster shakeup, and the 2025 schedule dropping. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I will see you Monday.